Hi, everybody. Buongiorno. Buongiorni. Welcome to another episode of I'm Reviewing Here, a podcast where I, Matthew Bussey, watch and review sight and sound's top greatest movies of all time. I am going down on these movies so fast. That sounds weird. I was not trying to be weird. I swear to God. Guys, I am so obsessed with this song. It's called The Power of Love by Frankie Goes to Hollywood. Does anyone know this song? Am I just a bimbo? Because I also didn't know Frankie Goes to Hollywood, but he did Relax. I know Relax from Zoolander, you know? Okay, The Power of Love is played, this isn't a spoiler, but it's played in All of Us Strangers, which, recently, when I'm recording this, it just came out in Philadelphia, All of Us Strangers. It stars Andrew Scott, Paul Mescal, I never know how to say his name, Claire Foy and Jamie Bell. The best movie of 2023. Boom. Hands frickin' down. It's now February, so this movie will probably have been out for a while now. Go see it. Please go see it. Do not wait for it to come to Blu-ray or streaming. Please, please, please don't. You have to see it on the big screen, preferably in an empty theater. I saw it on a Thursday night, and it was like a full frickin' house, and this stupid lady kept getting her goddamn phone. If you get your phone, okay, new rule right now. All right, I'm not ranting. I always just talk this way. You know me by now. If you get your phone out during a movie in a movie theater, I am going to call the police on you and have you arrested for the rest of your life. Okay? Good. Let's continue. Now, I said buongiorno. I can't. God damn it. And I'm going to Italy this summer, and I don't know how to speak any Italian apart from pizza. So, this is an Italian-themed episode because I'm going to talk about a very famous, in my opinion, very, forgotten, underrated, black and white Italian neorealist drama from the 40s. It is called, I'm sorry, I had to, because I keep pronouncing it wrong. PAISAN. Yeah, that's how you, Python. No, PAISAN. That's what it's called. Okay. PAISAN. Okay, I think the S is pronounced like a Z. If you're Italian and you're listening, please don't unfollow me. I'm sorry. I'm doing my best here. Okay, I am actually trying to learn some Italian, and now that I've seen this movie, I can go to Italy and be like, yo, I've seen the movie PAISAN. Have you usted? Or that's Spanish. Shit. Okay, I got some work to do. PAISAN. This is a very... that also was not a trailer of PAISAN. That was a trailer of director Roberto Rossellini's 3 films, including PAISAN. PAISAN is basically kind of part of a trilogy. None of the films have any, they're not related or anything like that. But it's basically part 2 of this unannounced trilogy that director Roberto Rossellini did. Now, Rossellini did... I reviewed one of his movies. It was called Europe 51 with Ingrid Bergman, which came out a few years after this. PAISAN came out in 1946. Before PAISAN, Rossellini made a very famous movie called Rome Open City in 1945. It was a big success. He got a lot of funding to make PAISAN, and then he, in 1948, came out with Germany Year Zero, another very famous movie. Now, these are all quick memory refresher. If you forget this, it's okay. This was a friggin' year ago. Italian neorealism. What is it? Well, Italian neorealism was a film movement in the 40s that basically, the rules of Italian neorealism were that, you know, these were films that took place in Italy just after the war and really focused on the lower, you know, working class. And the movies really showed you the destruction of Italy after the war and how hard it was to live in Italy after the war. And there were a lot of unknown actors in these movies most of the time, and they were always shot on location. And they were shot on location because, you know, World War II had just happened. Italy, it's not like Italy was like, okay, go make movies now. Like, no, they had, you know, bigger fish to fry, as they say. I mean, they had to get their city working, you know? So that's why these movies are very low budget. They're very experimental, I wouldn't really say. They don't really have a clear, you know, beginning, middle, and end. Not all of them. And I hate to say this, they're very depressing. Depressing, but amazing. Amazingly well done. There's a shot in Rome Open City that is very famous, but bleak. Bleak is the word that you're going to hear a lot from me. Also because Mean Girls, bleak, that is bleak. Remember when Janice Ian says it? Yeah, so I say it all the time. There's a scene, what was I saying? Yeah, like there's a scene in Rome Open City of a woman running down the street waving at this car, and then she gets shot, and the end. I mean, like, that's what these movies are like. These movies, they're not meant to be sorry, it's my chair. They're not meant to be happy. They're not at all meant to glorify or glamorize war. These movies are intense. They are sad. They are... Where's the synonym for bleak when you need it? Shit. Okay. PAISAN, though, is, very much like his other movies. It is very sad. It's a little different, though. PAISAN is not a clear, Hollywood movie in a way. This is a collection of vignettes. Vignettes. Do you know what vignettes are? I don't know the definition. Just go Google it. Google it, This movie consists of 6 vignettes. I'm just kidding. Vignette, if a movie has vignettes, it means that there are different stories presented in the movie. Sometimes they're all related. Sometimes they're completely separate and they have no relation at all. You would almost kind of call like Pulp Fiction a vignette movie, because it's all of these different stories, but they're all happening in the same universe and all the characters kind of know one another. It's a little different though. PAISAN is very strictly, okay, this is movie 1, episode 1, the end. This is episode 2. Episode 2's over. Next episode, it's very much like that. That's the kind of movie that PAISAN is. And it is freaking phenomenal. I loved PAISAN to death. I really, really did. I think this may be my favorite of Rossellini's films. I really liked Europe 51. It was very sad, of course, but very well done. I've seen Rome Open City. I've seen Germany Year Zero. I don't totally remember what happens in them. It's been a while since I've seen them. But Rossellini is considered by so many to be one of the most prolific Italian directors ever. Martin Scorsese, for example, loves Rossellini. And he was a real artist. I mean, he was. He made his point in his movies. Guys, war is not good. Okay, no. I was going to say no, okay, but that doesn't make any sense. Anyway, let's get into it.
Plots and ups.
So let's start with the first vignette, shall we? Yes, let's do it. Okay, first movie of PAISAN. I'm going to call it movie because there really are 6 movies in PAISAN. So this first movie... kind of like Black Mirror, Yeah, let's call it that. Black Mirror, but, war. I need a drink of water. Hold on. PAISAN, episode 1. I know, when I call it that, it makes me think of Star Wars. First episode. Episode 1, During the Allied invasion of Sicily, an American patrol makes its way to a village at night. Only one of the Americans speaks Italian. Local girl, Carmela, who wants to find the whereabouts of her brother and father, agrees to guide the patrol past a German minefield to the seaside. While one of the patrol, Joe, is assigned to keep an eye on Carmela in a castle ruin, the others inspect the area. Despite the language barrier, Joe starts to overcome Carmela's distance. When he is shot by a German sniper, Carmela hides him in the basement of the building. Upon the discovery that Joe has died, she takes his rifle and starts shooting at the enemy. When the Americans return, they find Joe's body and assume Carmela killed him. The last scene shows the dead Carmela lying at the bottom of the cliffs, having been shot by the German patrol at the end. Yeah, that's the end. I need a moment. This episode really, hit me emotionally in a devastating way. Good way, but, that means that the movie did its job. It's meant to make you devastated, and that's exactly what this episode did. Episode 2, none of these episodes have titles, by the way. Episode 2, the Allies invade mainland Italy and capture the port of Naples. An orphan street urchin named Pasquale happens upon Joe. This is one thing. I don't know why Rossellini is obsessed with the name Joe. I mean, there are other names in English, but it's kind of funny. This is a different Joe, though, not the same Joe. Pasquale happens upon Joe, a drunk African-American soldier who was about to become the victim of a robbery. When the police arrive, Pasquale runs away with Joe, who tells him of his war experiences. After Joe falls asleep, Pasquale takes his boots. Frankie, did you hear that? She's like, it's too depressing. I'm sorry, we're almost done. She wants to go out. Pasquale takes his boots. After Joe falls asleep, Pasquale takes his boots. I'm sorry, I lost my place. The next day, Joe, who turns out to be a military policeman, catches Pasquale stealing supplies from a truck. Joe demands his boots back, but when the boy takes him to where he lives, the sight of the squalor causes Joe to leave without them. Oh, that's kind of a sweet but sad episode. Episode 3, Francesca, a young prostitute in liberated Rome, takes Fred, a drunken American soldier, to the room to wink wink, where she serves her customers. He is not interested in her services and tells her of his futile search for a young woman he met and fell in love with shortly after the liberation of the city 6 months earlier. As he describes the woman, Francesca realizes that she is the woman. Both of them have changed so much in the short time that has passed that they do not recognize each other. When Fred falls asleep, Francesca slips out, asking the landlady to give Fred a piece of paper with her address on it when he awakens, and leaves. The next day, Fred finds the paper in his pocket and throws it away, telling a comrade it has a prostitute's address. While Francesca waits for him in vain, he leaves the city with his unit. The end. Oh my god. Episode 4. The southern half of Florence is freed, but fierce fighting continues in the other half across the Arno River between Italian partisans and the Germans and their fascist allies. All the bridges except the Ponte Vecchio have been blown up, stalling the Allied advance. Nurse Harriet learns that the leader of the partisans, Lupo, is an artist whom she knew in Florence before the war. She teams up with partisan Massimo, a man desperate for news of his family, and enters the embattled city through the Vasari corridor. Is that how you say it? Vasari corridor. Yeah, it is. After being held up by a gunfight, Massimo proceeds with his search, while Harriet takes care of a wounded partisan, from whom she hears of Lupo's recent death. Episode 5. The Empire Strikes Back. Just kidding. 3 American military chaplains are welcome to stay the night at a Roman Catholic monastery in the Apennine Mountains west of Rimini. Jesus, I have a lot of Italian words to learn. Captain Bill Martin, who is the only one of the chaplains who speaks Italian, acts as interpreter. The monks are dismayed to learn from Martin that only he is Catholic. His 2 colleagues are a Protestant and a Jew. When the guests and their hosts sit down to supper, Martin observes that the monks have nothing on their plates. He inquires and learns that the monks have decided to fast in the hope of gaining the favor of heaven to convert the other 2 to their faith. Despite the rule that meals have to be taken in silence, Martin holds a speech in which he expresses his appreciation for having found his peace again, which he had believed to be lost in the tribulations of war. And the final episode, episode 6. In December 1944, 3 members of the OSS, which was the Office of Strategic Services, are operating behind German lines with Italian partisans in the Po Delta. They rescue 2 downed British airmen. On their return to the Italian family who supported them, they find that these have been executed by the Germans. Later, the Allied soldiers and the partisans get involved in a gunfight and are captured by the enemy. A German officer explains to the captives his country's motives for the war, and that it will not stop before having achieved world domination. Oh boy. I hate World War II. I love it, but it pisses me off so much. The partisans are summarily executed the next day, and summarily? I've never used that word in my life. And the American prisoners shot when they try to interfere. The film closes with a voiceover narration, which opens each episode. I forgot to mention that there is a lot of voiceover at the beginning of each episode, stating, "This happened in the winter of 1944. By the beginning of spring, the war was over." The actual end. There is no clip for this movie that I could find, but there is this great talk that Martin Scorsese gives from 2002. I believe it was on the TCM network. Take a listen.
And our next film is a landmark, Roberto Rossellini's PAISAN from 1946. Certainly one of the central films of the Italian neorealist movement. It seems completely objective in its style, almost scientific, but it has an incredible emotional force. Rossellini's technique, his approach to the material, seems invisible. It's as if the director isn't doing anything but letting the camera run. But somehow this absence of technique amounts to one of the greatest uses of technique, of style, by a director that I've ever seen. PAISAN tells the story of the liberation of Italy from German occupation in the closing years of World War II. There are 6 separate episodes. Each is introduced with maps and newsreel footage following the Allied troops from their invasion of Sicily and moving north through the boot of Italy. Now, each story reflects on the delicate but always deepening bonds between the Italian people and the soldiers who mean to help them. The final episode, set in the marshes of the Po River Valley in northern Italy, is at once the most powerful and the most radical in style. Rossellini records this story of Italian partisans fighting alongside Allied soldiers almost without comment. But his camera perfectly captures the world of the men caught in this desperate struggle. It never peers above the reeds that provide their only refuge from the German guns. The French critic André Bazin said this technique gave the audience the exact equivalent of the inner feelings of these men. They live between the sky and the water. Their lives could depend on the tiniest shift of an angle, but the camera never leaves that plane. It could hardly be more simple or more effective. One of my favorite films, Roberto Rossellini's PAISAN.
Martin, I love Martin Scorsese so much. Killers of the Flower Moon, did anybody see it? I know it's long. I can kind of understand if you need to take a break and finish it, but yeah, it is really good. Check it out. It is on Apple now, even though you should have seen it in movie theaters. But anyway, I won't go there. I'm not always mad. I'm just kidding a lot of the time when I'm mad sometimes. I think Scorsese summons it up perfectly there. I think, there are some movies that I love, and they ask me, why do you love it? And literally all I can say is, it's just great. It's just great. PAISAN is not a happy movie, and it's not meant to be happy. You read about what actually, you see a lot of movies, war movies, that, I use the word glamorized or glorified a lot. The movies aren't always realistic. I think one of the reasons why people loved shows like The Pacific and Band of Brothers and even Saving Private Ryan, they have a bit of a Hollywood feel to it, but they're also brutal. Because war is brutal, It's the same with All Quiet on the Western Front, which came out in 2022. It's not a happy movie. War is not happy. It's not a happy thing. We should not be yeah, cool, I want to do it. I want to go war. It's no, it's not. Rossellini, you have to really imagine, this movie came out a year after World War II ended. The balls it took to film a movie in a city that was destroyed almost, I wouldn't say maybe not as badly as Germany or London, let's say. I don't know. Actually, don't get mad. I don't know my World War II history that well. I know Italy did, of course, get, wrecked like crazy during the war. To make a movie so soon after the war and depict a film so realistically, to depict a film that shows you that there was cruelty, there were no ethics in this war, from a lot of people. It's a big move. It's a bold move. He could have easily made a movie that was pro-Italy and pro-this, and look at what we did. We're good. There's nothing propagandistic at all in PAISAN and in Rossellini's other movies. There's nothing. You see that in some movies. You can see it. You can see it lurking a little bit. It's nuanced, but you can see it in some war movies, in some political movies. But in this, I think that's why Paisan is fantastic, in that the bleakness of it all works so well. You know? You expect happy endings, but they aren't happy because the war wasn't happy. There were no happy endings in the war. You know, when the war ended, yay, whoopee, but, you know, like 1,000,000 trillion people just died. I mean, like, that's the point I think Rossellini makes in Paisan. It's like, you know, there are characters, there are people who survived this war, but they're damaged. Everybody is damaged, you know? In episode 2, I mean, the American who sees the place where the little boy is living, Pasquale, and then he's so, like, taken aback by how poor and awful the conditions are that he just runs out and leaves. It shows you that, you know, people weren't perfect in the war. This is, like, a very deep episode. I'm sorry. I'm trying to not get, like, philosophical and talk about, like, life lessons here, but you know what I mean? It's... Nobody is really perfect in this movie. The episode with the monks, when they're like, well, one of them is a Jew, I don't think, like, they can eat with us. It's like, excuse me? I mean, the one, too, with the guy who, you know, gets the letter from the prostitute, who he actually really liked and fell in love with, but then he's like, well, never mind, she's a hooker. The end. I mean, yeah. For a movie to have such, you know, flawed characters is, I think, one of the most realistic things ever to do in a movie. That is why I love movies. I love movies that are, you know, revolved around real events, that really show you don't show you this. What am I trying to say? I really like movies that depict a real time, that have people who aren't perfect. You know what I mean? Paisan, I mean, like, there are likable characters in this movie. Like, the first episode I really liked, you know, Joe and Carmela, but life gets back at you, you know? It's sad. It's a very sad movie. Paisan, and I'm not trying to bring the mood down. It's not the happiest movie in the world, but it is absolutely astounding. So astounding. BTS Secrets and Scandals! Not too many scandals for this movie that I could find. Scandals, secrets, trivia. It wasn't really a lot. You know, a lot of the shots in Paisan were real. You know, there is actually the footage that you see, like the dailies, the archives. I mean, that was real. It was from the Italian campaign, including Allied ships shelling the Sicily coast. Wow, alliteration, boom. German troops retreating through the streets of Rome, and the American troops' triumphant entry into the city as they are welcomed by huge crowds of Italians. You can tell, obviously, that's real footage. I mean, if fool me, I would have been completely fooled if I thought that was all, you know. Why can't I think of the word? It's real footage. That's what I'm trying to say. I lost my thought. I'm sorry. I mean, the other trivia, it's not really super big. It's really, you know, the 5th episode, the one with the monks, those were authentic, Franciscan monks from the Maori convent near Salerno. And in addition, I mean, I said this already, this had a lot of known and unknown actors. I didn't know anybody in this movie. I didn't know any of the Americans in this movie. I was surprised to even see so many Americans in an Italian-made movie from 1946. I think that's really impressive. And the movie premiered at Venice in 1946. Venice International Film Festival. VIFF. Nobody calls it that. The best moment. I would have to say episode 1, that final shot when the camera pans down the cliffs and you see Carmela's body lying on the cliffs, you know, in front of the water, because you find out that she's been shot by the Germans. There's something about that image that was so effective because it was so heartbreaking and I was not expecting it. And it's like something out of a painting. Yeah, the shots in this movie, the cinematography was by Ottella Martelli, who, this guy. I remember this guy. He did the cinematography for La Dolce Vita, which is another very famous Italian movie, not by Rossellini, though. But that shot, there's something about that shot in the movie that stuck with me the most. Yeah, devastating.
Mais est-ce que je suis d'accord avec les critiques de ce film?
Do I agree with the critics of this movie? Well, no! I'm just kidding. I do. Yeah, the critics love this movie. You know, I forgot to say, too, that a lot of people wrote this movie. It was written by Italian guys. I'll try. Sergio Amidei, Federico Fellini, huge director, Marcello Pagliaro, Alfred Hayes, and Vasco Pratolini. Federico Fellini, there's going to be some of his movies coming up on this list, and I cannot wait to watch them because I love Fellini. Oh my god, R.I.P., man. One of the best directors of all time. He did La Dolce Vita, which I just mentioned, but what was I saying? Oh, I just wanted to give those writers a shout out. Yeah, each episode is phenomenal. Flawless, I really have to say. I loved this quote. This is it's very random, I know, but Nell Dodson Russell from Minnesota Spokesman Recorder. Hollywood still has to grow up. We've been too safe, too smug, too secure. European films reflect the suffering, the stark realism, the appreciation of human values that 2 wars in a generation have brought. Frickin' men. I loved that quote. Hollywood does have to grow up. When you make war movies, make them realistic. Don't gussy them up and make them all Hollywood and cool and get all big special effects. No, war's not special effects. War's terrible. I mean, if you're doing like the Avengers and it's fake and it's in space, I guess you can make it cool, but no. I love how realistic movies like Paisan are. That is what makes them so memorable, you know? Fernando F. Croce, oh God, I just burped too, I'm sorry. Croce, Fernando F. Croce from Cinepassion said, Paisan is chillingly blunt, doggedly unsentimental, and emotionally overwhelming. Oh my God, hell yeah, emotionally overwhelming. You goddamn kidding me? James Kendrick from Q Network Film Desk says that Paisan effectively maintains the rough-hewn, in-the-streets feel of neorealism, and in its best moments, it feels like something captured rather than something produced. Yeah, the realism. Realism is a big part in this movie. It's one of the strengths of the movie. All of this feels like... You feel like this is like almost like, what do they call it? Snuff footage? Sniff footage? Smug footage, you know, footage like that looks like someone like got a cheap camera and just filmed everything without anyone's permission. That is what Paisan feels like. You know, this doesn't feel like a movie. It never does. It never does at all.
Is it really one of the best movies of all time?
I 100% think it is. Yeah. I don't know how it compares to other Italian neorealist films. I'd have to check them out again, but Paisan definitely has stuck with me. I mean, it's like I don't remember Rome Open City in Germany Year Zero too well. Paisan, though, is up there. It hits you. It really sinks its teeth into your heart, and it rips it apart and sews it back together, but the wounds are still there. Yeah, I'm trying to sound poetic. Yeah. Fantastic movie. Definitely check it out. As of right now, it is available on the Criterion Channel. I keep forgetting to say this, but a lot of the movies I'm reviewing are on the Criterion Channel. Please go. Please go and download, I mean. And while you're downloading, I'm going to end with this. Get off your ass and go to the goddamn movies, okay? Are you sick? Are you lazy? Are you do you have a tummy ache? Well, they have medicine for it. They have antibiotics, okay? Go. Just do it. I know a good doctor who can make you feel better. And you know what? You can sneak medicine into the movie theater if you want to. Just go do it. Please support your local movie theaters. Okay, that's all. Bye-bye. Oh, you made it. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of I'm Reviewing Here. New episodes drop Tuesdays and Fridays. You can get this podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Feel free to follow me on Instagram at I'm Reviewing Here. You can also subscribe on YouTube. New episodes drop there the same day they drop on the podcast. Don't forget to subscribe. Please leave a review if you'd like. Be mean, be nice. hit on me. I don't really care. Candor really, really is important to me, and, you know, it helps the podcast too. So I really hope you enjoyed it. This podcast is brought to you especially by Nervous Chuckles. That is my fake production company, because I make people nervously chuckle all the time, because they never know if I'm telling a joke or not, so they're always like, oh, do I laugh? Do I not laugh? Is he serious? Is he insane? Did he get out of the loony? What's going on? So if I made you nervously chuckle, then that means that I did my job, and thank you. There is no funding for this podcast, but if you want to give me money, then yeah, like, hit me up. DM me. Bye-bye.